Hi there.
Hi, Shavua Tov. Shavua Tov. Yizayin Amud Aleph, we're on the top of the Mishnah, and in Maseches Chagigah, Beisham Yomrim, the previous Mishnah spoke about the big machlokas of all the generations if they're smicha on Yantif. And there was Shammai and Hillel over there. Here's Beisham Yomrim, Vivian Shlomim Ben Simcha Aleim, which seems to be the same Mishnah as I said before, that there's no smicha on Yantif. Avalo Olos. There's no olos at all, and that's the two machlokas going on simultaneously. One is about to bring a korban olos. The olos ria is a docha yantif, and Beishamai says not. And even the korban that you do bring on yantif, which is shalmei chagigah, he agrees you do bring it on yantif because since people are going to eat it, so therefore it's mutter to be docha yantif. But still, there's no smicha. Beisel lomrim mevian shlamim ba'olos for some chalein. Two machlokas nags in both points. First of all, you can bring a olo also, and also there's smicha. So it's very similar to the machlokas before about smicha, and also there's issue over here about bringing a olos ria on yantif, two machlokas. And so it's very interesting. According to Beishamai, the first day of yantif, you don't bring a olos ria. You don't bring the olos ria on yantif. You bring it the next day or the following day. But on the first day, it's not docha yantif. We pass like Beisilo that you could bring the shalmei chagigah and that bring the shalmei chagigah and the olos ria, even though olos ria also bring the first day, and also the smicha.
Excuse me, what page is that?
Yud Zion. Yud Zayin, is that true? Yes, Yud Zayin. Yud Zayin. Beis Hill says, yes, that was what we had before. Yesterday we had the machlokas of all the generations, Shimon and Shetach, Yehuda ben Tabai. There was Shammai and Hillel. Here's Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel, but they go on the same as the.
But you're doing smicha. You're saying vidui or
no vidui on the Shlomo. No.
It's an oil.
And no video. Both of them. The question about smicha is both on a shlam and a ola, and you don't do video. There's no video over here. There's never a video on a ola. Only by chatas is here, but there's not a question of chatas over here. It could be on a ola's yochad. It could be a regularly. It does say something about if someone was over an asay. So it does say if he transgressed the mitzvah asay. So it says you should do tshuva and it should bring a korban ola as a doron. Not that it's a mechaper, but that it's more like after you did wrong, you wronged the king, and you already confessed and you got forgiven. So then you bring a doron. It's more, but it's not. You don't. Maybe over there it does say that he would say video of the area that, but not do it here. He would talk about olas ria, nothing to do with about video over here. It comes out, the Mishnah continues, it's a continuation of the point we just said that according to Beishamai, there's no olas ria on Yantif. What do you do if Yantif comes out on Erev Shabbos? According to Beishamai, what do you do when your Shavuos falls out on Erev Shabbos? According to Beishamai, you can't bring the korbanos olas ria on Yantif for Erev Shabbos. You can't. I just said you can't bring the olas ria according to him. And the next day is Shabbos also you can't. So it's going to be pushed off till Sunday. That the day they're going to bring the korbanos is called Yom Tovah, the slaughter day. Means the korbanos that you're supposed to bring on Shavuos, you can't bring on Shavuos. So you bring it usually the next day, but here's Shabbos, you bring it 2 days later. There is no slaughter day after Shabbos because he holds you slaughter it on the Friday, on the day of Yom Tov. So that seems to be an outcome of the Mishnah before, if you bring the olas ria or not. And then the next point is, how about Chol Lios b'Shabbos? What if Shavuos comes out on Shabbos? Everybody holds you can't bring the olas ria and the Shalmei Chagigah on Shabbos. So everybody holds that the next day is going to be the slaughter. Yom Tovah Chachar Shabbos, even according to Beis Hillel. They only argue about Yantif, but Shabbos surely you can't bring it. And then the Mishnah says interesting thing that this Sunday that you bring all the korbanos of Shavuos. Ein kohen gadol mislabish b'kelov u'mutar b'es b'v'taynis shelo l'kaim divrei omrim tzitzeres achar Shabbos. It's a dangerous thing to push off Shavuos when it's supposed to be on Shabbos on Sunday. If it comes out on Sunday, so it came out on Sunday. But if it came out on Shabbos and you push it off to Sunday, it looks a little bit like we're giving into the Tzedukim. The Tzedukim held that Shavuos is always on a Sunday, because it says that you bring the Omer Mimachros Shabbos, and they say that it means literally the day after Shabbos. They say it always comes out on a Sunday. That's when the Omer, and then 7 weeks later is going to be Shavuos. It's always going to be a Sunday.
Oh, that's how it works.
That's what the Tzedukim say, but we say that's not true. That Machos Shabbos means the day after Pesach. Second, when it comes out. So if it comes out on a Sunday, okay, it comes out. Whatever comes out, Sunday, Monday. When it comes out, it comes out. But if it comes out on a Shabbos, then we push it off to Sunday.
We don't push it off.
We don't push it off, right? But we do it. But the korbanos. Right. But it looks interesting that the korbanos of Shavuos are being brought on Sunday. So it looks a little bit like we're giving into the Tzedukim and making it on Sunday, even though according to our cheshbon it should have become. So therefore, we downplay the Sunday. That's really not Shavuos. It's really the day after Shavuos. It's really Yisroel Chag. We downplay it. What do? So it says first of all, Ein Kohen Gadol Mislavish B'Kelev. So whatever the point is going to be somehow that he's showing that it's not celebrating, it's not a holiday, and he plays it down by not wearing his kelim. What does that mean? So Rashi says it means that he doesn't. Is Rashi and Taisus over here are pretty similar, but the Rashi says that he doesn't wear his Yontif clothing. Rashi says it has nothing to do with the big day kuna. Rashi has a little bit of chiddush that the Kohen Gadol, when it says he doesn't wear his clothing, it means he doesn't wear his Yontif clothing. And his Yontif clothing has nothing to do with the big day kuna. It means everybody besides the big day kuna that he has a suit or a frock, whatever he has. So he has a Shabbos Dika one, a Yontif one, and he has a weekday one. So he should wear weekday clothing on that day in order to show that it's not a Yontif. Even though everyone's bringing the Yontif Kabbanis. It's the day after Shavuos, and yesterday Shavuos was on Shabbos. They're bringing all the Kabbanis. Everyone, Dami Shval is all coming in to bring the Kabbanis of Olas Riyah. So the Kohen Gadol is wearing weekday clothing in order to show that it's a weekday, even though they're bringing the Shavuos Kabbanis. Taisa says a little differently. Taisa says that it's also the big day kuna. Taisa doesn't want to say big day Kohen Gadol doesn't mean it means a big day kuna, but it means that he had a set of big day kuna, which was more Shabbos-dik. I think it's what Taisa says over here. Where's Taisa? Said maybe he doesn't say that it means nicer ones. It means that he didn't do avoda. He didn't do avoda in order. He didn't put on his begadim. Means he didn't do avoda. Usually he would do avoda on Yantif. He doesn't have the other kohanim available. But whatever it is, the point is going to be that he should downplay that it's not a Yantif today. We wanted to make a statement that it's not a Yantif, even though it looks superficially like we're giving in that Shavuos is the next day, Sunday. We're showing that it's not. And also a mutter best with a that you don't say that since it's the day that bring karbanos, maybe also because it's Isru Chag, there's a question about Isru Chag, a lot of have history of B'tainis. Let's say that maybe Pshat in the Mishnah would be that regular Isru Chag would be Aser best with B'tainis, and now we made an exception and said that it's mutter in order to show that it's not a holiday. Shalom l'kaim divrei omrim and teres achar Shabbos, in order not to give any backing to those who say that Shavuos always comes out on a Sunday. So the Mishnah had more or less three parts. The beginning was the famous machlokus we had before about smicha, plus also the machlokus about bringing Olas Riyah on Yantiv. And we passed like Basil that you could bring even Olas Riyah and also do smicha, but according to Beishamah you can't. So the Mishnah says if it comes out Shavuos and Erev Shabbos, so then you're not going to be able to bring the Olas Riyah not on Shabbos, not on Yantiv, not on Shabbos. You're going to push it off 2 days until Sunday. And Beis Hillel would say no, because you could bring it on Yantif on Friday. And if it comes out on Shabbos, Beis Hillel also agrees that you make the Kabbanas on the next day. You can't bring Olas Riyah and Shalom and chagigah on Shabbos, you bring it on Sunday. But make sure no one should make a mistake and think that it's Yantif. So the Kohen Gadol does something, whatever it is, he doesn't put on his Yantif clothing, or according to Taisvus, he doesn't do avoda in order not to treat it like a regular Yantif. Other Kohanim will do it. You do something to show that it's not a Yantif. Also, mutter best for the B'tainis, we don't make it any kind of a celebration to think that it's a Yantif. So easy Mishnah. We pass like Beis Hillel that you bring all the Sriya Shalom Chagigah on the first day, but not on Shabbos. And if it comes out on Shavuos on the Shabbos, and we make the hecker on Yantif that people shouldn't make a mistake. The whole Gemara, it's a short Gemara. I think we're going to finish early tonight. It's a halacha. We're out of Agadata, but it's still easy Gemara. And the whole sugya today is going to be about this one more or less. How do you know that Shavuos you can bring the Kabbanis for all 7 days? Pesach we know is 7 days. Sukkot is 8 days. With Shmini Atzeres, Shavuos is only 1 day, and in Chutz La'aretz is 2 days, but Shavuos is only 1 day. And if you didn't bring the Kabbanis on the first day, so you can bring it 6 days more. That's why the Minhagim come, you don't say Tachna in all of those days. So what's the source? Where do you get that from? We had this Gemara already. It says on the side, we had it on Rosh Hashanah and Moed Katan. We had it 2 times already. So here the Gemara talks up. What am I doing? How do you know that you could bring Kabbanis for Shavuos 6 days more? Altogether 7 days, and it's called Tashlumin. So L'chadchila bring it the first day. If you didn't, so then bring it within the 7 days. And the Gemara is going to have two Mekorot, 2 sources. The first one is Rabbi Elazar Amar Rabbi Shaya, and we can have an Amud Beis, another opinion. So the first pshat he says is Shenemar v'chag hamatzos u'v'chag hashavuos u'v'chag hasukos. That's the pasuk that says that all chagim together. It has a list of all the chagim, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkos. And the fact that it puts it together, Makish Chag Shavuos l'chag hamatzos. There's some comparison between Pesach and Shavuos. The fact that it puts it together, and you learn out that Shavuos is like Pesach. Just like in what way they're going to be compared for this halacha, just like Pesach is 7 days, and if you didn't bring the korban the first day, you can bring it all 7 days. So too, Shavuos, you also can bring it all 7 days. But the Gemara is a kasha on that drash. In the pasuk it also it has sukkot. So maybe the drash should be that Shavuos is similar to Sukkot, and Sukkot is 8 days. Maybe you learn out that it should be Tashlumin 8 days, means the first day of Shavuos plus another 7 days. So the Gemara tries to get out of it and says that Shmini Atzeres is not part of Sukkot. This is the Gemara's going to try. It's not going to work. The Gemara says Shmini Regel B'fnei Atzmo. Shmini Atzeres is not part of Sukkot. So therefore, Sukkot is 7 days. Even if you learn out the Sukkot also, you'd say it's only 7 days. Either way, whatever you want. You can learn out Shavuos either from Pesach or from Sukkot. Both of them are 7 days. But the Gemara says that's not true. As far as our Allah, that you're allowed to bring the Kabbanis of Sukkot, that's even including Shmini Atzeres, like it says in the Mishnah. Shmini Regel B'fnei Atzmo. As far as what do we say that Shmini Atzeres is a yontif on its own, not part of Sukkot. And in Milul Inyan, this Hazar Kashav, this is a Rashi Tevis that stands for 6 things, and Rashi brings them all down. Torim and okay, I didn't underline it over here. So Purim and Zman, Regel, Korban, Shir, Bracha. Rashi brings down the things we had before that Shmini Atzeres is considered a separate yantif as far as the number of korbanos that you bring. It doesn't go with the regular.
It doesn't mean that the 7 in between is not like the Tashlumin that we compare it to Shavuos. That's what I mean.
Again, the Gemara is saying that Pesach, Shavuos is like Pesach. It has 7 days. The Gemara is asking let Shavuos be like Sukkot that has 8 days. So first the Gemara tries to say that Sukkot is only 7 days also.
Right.
And Shmini Atzeres is a separate yantiv. Right. But the Gemara says that's not true as far as Tashlumin. The Gemara is going to say as far as Tashlumin, you can bring the Kabbanis of Sukkot also on Shmini Atzeres. As far as these 6 things go, Pazar Kashav, these 6 things, then you're right that Shmini Atzeres is not part of Sukkot. But as far as Tashlumin, if you didn't bring the Korban, you're supposed to bring the oldest 3 Shalom chagigah of Sukkot, you can bring it on Shmini Atzeres also. So the Kasha comes back. We're still holding by the Kasha that if you compare Shavuos to Sukkot, it's going to be 8 days. This Gemara goes just to say that there's things we learned someplace else, not again to us now, but as far as, let's say, the number of Purim that you bring, Shechionu, maybe I made a mistake with Pari Achag, Lenin Pari. Rashi says, I'm sorry, the first one was pious. Pious, here's the Rashi. The Rashi tells what they stand for. Pious, Zman, Regel, Korban, Shir, Bracha. Pious means that you have a regular pious to who brings there's no pious on Sukkot because there's a regular Seder who brings the Kabbanis, will make a rotation, but by Shmini Atzeres you do make a pious because it's on a different series. And a Shechianu, Regel, there's a machlokes what the Regel might be over here. Korban.
Those are the 6 things you do.
The 6 things that Shmini Atzeres is different than Sukkot. It's not part. Yeah. Regel, Rashi says that Regel means that it's called a different name. The Chag is not called Sukkot, it's called Shmini Atzeres. Korban is going to be that you don't bring the same amount of korbanos as you brought on during Sukkot. Shir says that the Shir Shal Yom is going to be not the same series as you'd have on Sukkot. And the last one was Bracha, that they used to bless the king, Yom HaShmini Berach HaSamel, something that you didn't do on Sukkot. So the Gemara says there are other things that Shmini Atzeres is considered a yantif, but as far as our subject, to do Tashlumin, Tashlumin the Rishonu, that you can still bring the Tashlumin of Sukkot even on Shmini Atzeres. That says in Mishnah that if someone didn't bring the Karbonis of Sukkot on the first day, he brings it the rest of Sukkot, and even on Shmini Atzeres.
That's only the Diab.
Yes, it is. Everything. The Tashlum is also always b'diavad, but this whole thing we're talking about is b'diavad. He's l'chadchil should bring it on the first day, on Shavuos, on Pesach, on Sukkot. But if he didn't, how long do you have to make it up? So we said 7 days, and the one is asking a valid question now. After all this, it comes out. It's a good kasha. Learn it out maybe from Sukkot, which has 8 days. The answer is tefasta below tefasta more tefasta. It's true that there's another chag that has 8, but that's the cloud that when you have to making a drasha, you only can take the lowest chiddush. You can't take the biggest chiddush. So if you have a question of a 7 and an 8, it's like the saying goes, 1 in the bag and better than 2 in the bush or something like that. That if whatever's for sure is for sure. And Rashi sometimes says what is tefasta below tefasta. The same idea as they say in English. So it means if you have a question of Shavuos, here the pasuk goes that says that Shavuos is in between Pesach and Sukkot. You don't know which one to compare it to, so you're only entitled to the smallest chiddush. The smallest chiddush is 7. So the Gemara is happy with that, and that's going to be the first teretz. We're going to have some questions on it, but so far the Gemara is happy. Once the Gemara mentioned that the pasuk says Sukkot, so the Gemara as a side point, and let's put in parentheses to show that it's a side point. What do you do with the pasuk Sukkot? It says v'chag matzos, v'chag shavuos, v'chag sukkos. So the reason why it says chag matzos and chag shavuos is to tell you that Shavuos has tashlumin for 7 days. So why does it have to say chag sukkos over here? If you're not learning out tashlumin from chag sukkos, so it's extra pasuk. So the one has to have a drasha for that also. Why did the pasuk write chag sukkos over here? The answer is like a different drasha, like in a different way to learn out sukkos also from Pesach. Shavuos to learn it from Pesach as far as tashlumin, and sukkos also is learned out from Pesach, not as far as tashlumin. It has even more tashlumin than Pesach does. It even has 8 days. But you learn out chag matzos tam lina, chag sukkos tam lina. Just like by Pesach, we're going to see soon in a second that you're supposed to stay overnight. That it's not, you can't just bring the korban and go home. You have to stay overnight. So too, sukkos also you're supposed to stay overnight. There's a big Tosfos that talk, not know if it's over here. It's in Sukkah that talks about if you have to stay over only one night or you have to stay over all the nights of maybe all nights. There's a Tosfos over there that talks about that.
Or after the last day?
That's the question. Does it mean every night or only the first night? After you bring the korban, it says, so means what? You brought the korban, it's on the first day of Sukkot, let's say. And then, what's the until you're going to Chol you want to go home? There's a question about that because, of course, you have to stay because Shalmei Simcha. You have to do Shalmei Simcha every day. But maybe you'll go to a hotel out of Yerushalayim and you'll come back and the next day. But you're supposed to stay in Yerushalayim. I think Taisa comes out over there that, or the post can come out that you're supposed to stay all 7 days. But anyway, the point is that you learn out. It doesn't say by Sukkot because there's going to be a drash by the Andamad Beis, the first line. There's going to be a drash that he's supposed to do Lina by Pesach. It doesn't say by Sukkot, and this drash is going to tell you that it applies to Sukkot also. So this was the drash. Since it says the Chag Matzos of the Chag Shavuos of the Chag Sukkos, we learn out that Chag Sukkos is also similar to Chag Matzos as far as what? That he's supposed to stay overnight. And now the Gemara on the top line, how do you know about Pesach he's supposed to stay overnight? Where's the pasuk over there? He'll turn in the morning and go back home. That morning means the morning after Yantif. That once the Yantif, you stay in Yerushalayim also. So that it says, this pasuk it says by Korban Pesach, by Pesach, and now we're learning out it also applies to Sukkot also, and also to Shavuos. It applies to all the Chagim. You're supposed to also stay overnight. So far we came up with one halacha, and that was that Shavuos also has tashlumin for all 7 days. That's how the Gemara started. That Shavuos has, the reason why it comes in is because the Gemara is going to be asking for our Mishnah soon. But so far we just learned this one halacha that Shavuos has tashlumin for 7 days. It brought a source from the pasuk that says Chag Matzos Chag Shavuos. It's just like Pesach has 7 days, so too does Shavuos. The rest of the Gemara was a kasha. How about Sukkot? We came out that even though Sukkot has 8 days, Tafasta moved below Tafasta. And we just said the reason why it does say Chag Sukkot in the pasuk is to tell you that Sukkot also has to have staying overnight, a separate Rosh from Pesach. Now there was a problem on this halacha that was saying that Shavuos, you can bring the Kabbanis for all 7 days. Top line, Tanan, second line, Atzer Shechol Yosef Shabbos, Besham Yom Tovah Chachar Shabbos, so Vesel Omer Ein Lo Yom Tovah. That was our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says Shavuos comes out on Erev Shabbos. Besham says you can't bring the Kabbanis on Yantif. You can't bring it on Shabbos either. So therefore, the Kabbanis day is going to be Sunday. We still say there's no Yom Tovah. There's no, you can't, and the Gemara thinks it means that you can't bring the Kabbanis anymore. It says there's no Yom Tovah, there's no slaughter day because you bring the Kabbanis on Friday, because they hold you allowed to bring the Kabbanis on Yantif. So they say if it comes out on Friday, there's no problem. So there's no Yom Tovah, there's no slaughter day. The Gemara thinks it means my love, Ein Yom Tovah Klal. That sounds like there's no slaughter day. You can't bring the Kabbanis even if you didn't bring it. That means there's no tashlumin. You're telling me this new halacha that Shavuos has tashlumin 6 more days after Yantif. So why does Beis Hillel say there's no Yom Tovah? You can bring Kabbanis. The Gemara says, a simple answer, lo, she'en tzricha Yom Tovah. That means he doesn't need it. Of course, you can bring the Kabbanis for 6 days more, but you're not. But the doesn't need it means that they are allowed to bring it the first day, which is a simple teretz. I think we would have said it ourselves also. That all the Mishnah means to say is you don't need that slaughter day because you can do it on Yom Tov itself. But if you didn't bring the Kabbanis, then yeah, you have tashlum until the end of the week. But then the was bothered. If all the Mishnah is telling you that you could bring the Kabbanis on Yom Tov itself on Friday and you don't have to push it off till Sunday, so it's no chiddush. That was what the Mishnah said before. Ifligu ba chadazimna detnan b'sham yom mevian shlam mevian samchan alein avalo olos uveselom mevian shlam avolos for samchan alein. That was the beginning of the Mishnah. If you scroll back to the beginning of the Mishnah, that was the first thing it said. It said we divided the Mishnah into 3 parts. The first part of the Mishnah was about smicha and bringing the korban, and Beisil said mevian shlam avolos for samchan alein. So he says beferish that you're allowed to bring the olos on Yantiv. So there's no chiddush in the second case that it says when it comes out on Friday, Beisil says you don't need a Yom Tov. We know that. That's what he said a second ago, that you bring it on Yantiv. The more things he must become to tell you that you're not allowed to bring it anymore because there's no such thing as 6 days of Tashlumin. Because if we, yeah. According to Beishamai, you can't bring it.
You can't bring it anyway on
You
Friday.
can't bring it on Friday. You can't bring it
You
on
have to
Shabbos. You
bring
bring
it
it on Sunday. But here the Gemara is asking based on that says you don't need it. The Smashma the Gemara thought that you cannot do it anymore, and that the kasha was he just said you could do it for 6 days after Yantif. So the Gemara says that's what it means. But that all he meant to say was that you don't need it because you could have done it on Yom Tov itself on Friday. But there's Tashlum, there's Tashlum on 6 more days, but you don't need a Yom Tov because you could have done it on Friday itself. But the more is bothered that we know that already. That was what they just argued in the Reisha. There's no more chiddush in the second case than the first case. It's the same case. It's not a case. It's a din that you can bring the korban on Yom Tov. So we still didn't add on anything by saying that when it comes out on Friday, you don't need to slaughter it on Sunday because you can do it on Friday. He said that already. The Gemara answered.
Is there you couldn't put it in on Friday for some reason? You were.
So we said that you have to shlum in 6 days. You have to shlum in 6 days.
We said that would be a big omelette on Friday.
He's not coming to say. So we're saying that he's masking this tashlum in all 6 days. That's not the point. The Gemara is trying to say the Mishnah is not coming to argue with that. You have to tashlum in 4 6 days. All the Mishnah is saying you don't have to do it on if you're allowed to do it on Friday. So that the Gemara is asking. The Mishnah said that he said 2 lines ago. He said you're allowed to do it on Yom Tov. So there's no chiddush. The Gemara says there is a chiddush. In short, the Gemara is going to answer that maybe there's a difference between pushing it off 1 day, pushing it off 2 days. On a regular Yom Tov that comes out on a weekday. So then even if you don't, Beishamai holds you don't do it on the Yom Tov, so you do it the next day. But here that you have to put Friday and Shabbos, you're going to push it off 2 days. So now the Gemara is going to talk about that chiddush that you have to push it off 2 days also. And the Gemara is going to go both ways. Sricha, you need both Mishnayos. If we only say the first case, when it comes out on the weekday, so then you might think the Beishamai pushes it off 1 day. Don't bring it on Yom Tov, bring it the next day. But if it comes out on a Friday and you're going to have to push it off 2 days, maybe the masking to Beis Hillel that it should be done on Yom Tov already. Better do it on Yom Tov than to push it off 2 days. So I have to tell you that even if it's 2 days, also Beishamai says you can't bring it on Yom Tov, you have to push it off 2 days. If it only was say the case of Friday came out on Friday, and therefore you have to push it off 2 days. Maybe only their Beis Hillel would have said that do it on Yom Tov. If you're gonna have to push it off 2 days, Beis Hillel says do it on Yom Tov already. But maybe if it's a weekday and you can do it Isru Chag, you can bring the Kabbanas on the next day. Maybe there's 2 cases. One is the Reisha. If you look in the Mishnah, the first case in the Mishnah is a regular case. Maybe and Shlomo and the Beis Hillel and no Olos. Beis Hillel says you bring Olos also. So it's regular machlokes. Do you bring a korban Olos Riyah on Yom Tov? That's the first case. And the second case is talking about when it came out on Erev Shabbos. Those are the 2 cases. So is there any chiddush? Someone says there's a chiddush because maybe Beis Shammai only says to push it off from Yom Tov if you can bring it the next day. But if you have to bring it 2 days later, maybe Beis Shammai is going to say I don't want to push it off so much, but do it on Yom Tov already. And the other way, you might say Beis Hillel says do it on Yom Tov, maybe he's only talking about in order not to push it off 2 days. But if you're just going to push it off 1 day till Isru Chag, maybe it also would be masking you can push it off. So the Mishnah have to say both cases, both the case where the next day is a weekday, and both the case where the next day is a Shabbos, that the extreme machlokes. Beis Shammai says even if to push it off even 2 days, no, still push it off 2 days better. Even if that's going to be, if you don't do it on Yom Tov, you're going to have to push it off 2 days. And Beis Hillel is going to say even if you don't have to push it off at all, even if push it off, I'm sorry, 1 day, also don't push it off. So that's why the Mishnah said both cases. So the Gemara is happy that it doesn't say anything about Tashlumin. Tashlumin still stays Chai B'Kayam, that if you didn't do it, you could do it for all 6 days. And the Mishnah is not talking about that. It's not coming like Fuke that. The Gemara continues. Another kasha. It says in the Brisa, this so far the kasha was from our Mishnah. Another Gemara goes from a Brisa. Mishlochag Shiva Simei Pesach, Shmona Simei Chag, V'Yom Tev Shel Atzeres, to take out the word Rishon, Shuv Ein Chog. It says if somebody didn't bring the korbanos of Yom Tev during the 7 days of Pesach, and during the 8 days of Sukkot, and during the Yom Tov of Shavuos, he can't bring it anymore. It's too late. So Pesach and Sukkot makes sense. If you missed all 7 days, you have Tashlum on all 7 days, and Sukkot all 8 days. And if you missed that, too late. That's Mubas Lo Yochel Liskom. Too late. But here it says it also Shavuos. If you missed Shavuos, Yom Tov Shel Atzeres, you missed it. That sounds like there's no Tashlumin. And we said that there's Tashlum in 6 days. My love, Yom Tov Shel Atzeres, doesn't it mean that if you didn't bring it on the Yom Tov of Shavuos, so you missed it? So much that doesn't mean that. It means if you missed the Yom Tov, it means you missed this the day after. That you can bring the Kabbalah the day after also. That's also not good enough because we said you can bring it for 6 more days. So then let it say so. Then it says that you only have 1 day and you don't have Tashlumin. The Gemara says, edit the Mishnah. There was not bothered. It means Yom Tov Shel Atzeres means whatever you're allowed to bring about it says that you can bring for all 7 days. So the Gemara is not impressed with this proof either, and we still hold on to the Yesod that you could bring the Kavanas of Shavuos for all 7 days. Third line, Tashma, the Tani Yabba Bashmuel, Amato, Menei Yom V'Kadesh Chodesh, Menei Yom V'Kadesh Atzeres. The Brisa says that the Torah says count days and sanctify the Rosh Chodesh, and count days and sanctify Shavuos. There's a drush to say that there's a similarity, just like you make Rosh Chodesh on what you count, the days, 30 days at the Chodesh Yomim, and you make the day, the beginning of it to be a Yom Tov, Rosh Chodesh. So too, by Shavuos, there's a counting of days, and then you make Shavuos. And the Brisa says, what do you learn out from that? Just like Rosh Chodesh, how long is Rosh Chodesh? It's one of its units of accounting. You count a Chodesh is made up out of units of days, like it says Chodesh Yomim, either 29 or 30, but it's made out of units of days. So how long is Rosh Chodesh? One unit of the units that it's made up of. Mm-hmm. So too, Shavuos is one unit of the units that it's made up of. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean to say? My love, if we learn out from Rosh Chodesh, that means Shavuos is only 1 day, and that's going to come out that you only can bring Kavanas for 1 day. The one is asking that if it says that Shavuos is as long as its units, and you count days, so then it should only be 1 day. And you're saying that you have 7 days of Shavuos. The Gemara says, by Shavuos also, what is made out of? What is Shavuos made out of? Units of days. Not only, it's also made up of units of weeks, because the mitzvah is to count days, 50 yom. Also, it says to count weeks, 7 weeks. That's what we do. Yeah. Right. You count.
7 weeks.
Yes. The days also. What you count to Shavuos. Shavuos is made up out of units of its count. What is its count? Days that you count up until Shavuos, and also weeks that you count up until Shavuos. So when the Gemara says that Shavuos is as big as its units, it's true. It's as big as its units. Not only a unit of days, it's also a unit of a week. So you have a week of Shavuos. Not that the Yom Tov is not a whole week, but the Tashlum is going to be for a week. Do you think that Shavuos only account days? What?
Tizbra means what?
Tizbra.
Explain.
Go ahead.
Isn't it logical? Would that be a translation?
Isn't it logical? Okay, I don't know. The Rebbe in Ched always says, "I'll ask you a kasha," but you're right. That's not the literal meaning. I'm hearing it for the first time, so I don't know. It's some of an introduction of like, what do you think, or something like that, or isn't it reasonable? Something like Yaakov is saying, but it's an introduction of like, what do you think? Isn't it the way I'm going to tell you now? Do you think to say that you only count days and you don't count weeks? You do count weeks also. From Rabbiya, mitzvah l'mim le'yom, t'chsev tisru chamishim yom, or mitzvah l'mim le'shui, t'chsev sheva shavuos, tisparlach. That's a mitzvah to count days, like it says, counts to 50 days. It's also a mitzvah to count weeks, like it says, counts 7 weeks. So therefore, it's not a kasha that it says Shavuos is one of its units, and you only have 1 day. Shavuos is one of its units, and you have a whole week. So you could have the whole week of bringing Kabbanis 6 days also after Shavuos, 6 days plus the day of Shavuos. Right. And the old Chag Shavuos K'siv, another reason that we should say that it's a festival of a week. The whole again, the point is to say that it's the Gemara seems to say that it's a festival of weeks, which means that the weeks that you counted up until same point. Or the Gemara is coming to say another drash to say that Chag Shavuos means that the Chag itself is going to be a whole week as far as Kabbalah is going.
The very name of the Chag means Shavuos, means weeks.
Right, but it doesn't mean that it's a week. It means that it's been of weeks. So that's but the point, the simple Gemara is coming to say that it's a festival that's made up of weeks, and therefore when we say that Afat Seres Lemanduya, just like Chodesh, also Seres, so that also has the chashivas of a week, and therefore it's not a kasha if you're going to have also the whole week to bring kabbanis. The Gemara doesn't use this drasha we said as a source. The Gemara just thought that it was a kasha, but the Gemara said this drasha that it says Menei Yom and V'Kadesh Etzer seems to be now a new drasha. They also could learn out that you have tashlum in all 7 days. So far, yes, please.
I didn't think that it was called Chag Shavuos. It's not written that way. Is it in the Torah?
Yes, what does it say in the Torah? B'chag hamatzos, b'chag hashavuos, b'chag hasukkos.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I think you're referring to Atzeres. What we also call Shavuos Atzeres, that's not in the Torah. The Torah doesn't call Shavuos Atzeres, and we do.
Okay.
But Shavuos is in the Torah.
Thank you.
So far, we had one drash to tell you the halacha that you're allowed to have tashlum in all 7 days, and that was from this pasuk in the beginning, b'chag hamatzos, b'chag hashavuos. That was the drash that told us that Shavuos is like Pesach, that it has 7 days. It also, in parentheses, seems to be also this Drash Buddha said now about Menei Yomim, the Kadesh Atzeres also could be used maybe as a Drash to say that you have 7 days Tashlumin after the Gemara finishes fixing it up. Nisvelim in Shvui and Chol Chag Shavuos. But the Gemara doesn't seem to use that. The Gemara brings in now a second Drasha to tell you how do you know that you have Tashlumin all 7 days. Devei Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Tana, the yeshiva of Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says the following Brisa, Omar Kra.
This is now
another source to the question that we said, this principle that Shavuos is all Tashlumin even the first 7 days altogether. I just say 6 days, not to think that it's 7 more days.
Right.
It's Shavuos plus another 6 days.
What happened to the first thing that we said?
Yeah, that's days. That's days. That's a good Russia. That's a good Russia. That you learn.
Why we keep arguing?
We had kashas. No, we're challenging it. Doesn't our mission say differently? No, he said over halacha minayin. Who is this? This was no. Even if you have a source, no, you're right. But it's an amora, and the more that had a kasha from our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says there's no yom tavoach, and the other Brisa says that it's the if you missed that service, you missed the karbanos. So they were challenging it, and the more answers each one. And now the Gemara brings another drasha to the same halacha to agree to this halacha, and that's going to be Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. Before it was Rabbi Elazar ben Oshia. Rabbi Elazar ben Oshia, and this is Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. Tana Amar across him. It says across him. I forgot to begin it. What's the pasuk over here? I'm sorry that I didn't. What is the pasuk?
Across the drawer.
Across him, that's my yom hazeh mikra kodesh yelachem kam lechas avodah lo sasu chukas olam b'chol moshvosechem l'dor rosechem. That's Vayikra Perek of Gimel pasuk Chav Aleph, and the next pasuk right away it says it says about Shavuos, and then right away it says when you when you cut the harvest, the reaping of your field, so leave peya like it. So it says right away next to it ukrasem uvakutzrechem. I didn't check the pasuk, so I just want to make sure if I'm quoting it right. What is it talking about over there? The Shabbos Daf Yomi is different than the rest of the week Daf Yomi. I must, it's not prepared as well. Vayikra Perek Chav Gimel.
When do you prepare Shabbos?
In between the Cholent and the Chav Gimel, Chav Uva Kutzrechem. Yom Hazeh Ukrasem Be'etzem. Yeah, it's talking about Shavuos over there. And then it comes the Shavuos, Ad Machas Shabbos Asvius, and then it says, that's Shavuos. So it says Shavuos. And the next pasuk seems to be in parentheses. I put in my chumash like parentheses. It's not talking about Shavuos. It says the din of leket that you should leket that you should when you do cut. It's the chagigah kotzeh. So it says when you cut, so you reap your field, so you should leave over peya leket whatever. But the Gemara has a drash to say not the pashup shot. It says you're making a yantif and you're cutting. How could it be that you're cutting on the yantif? Which is the chag that you call it a convocation, whatever they call it, krasem mikra kodesh, that you call it a yantif, and also you're reaping. It must be Shavuos. But which Shavuos is that? When Shavuos? On Shavuos, you're allowed to reap.
The next night. No.
You think what?
Pesach. I'm thinking Motzi Pesach.
But it's talking about Shavuos over there, and it means that when you cut, it's chagigah kotzeh. But when is that? On the yantif itself? On the yantif, are you allowed to reap? Are you allowed to harvest? Are you allowed to reap? Pull out things from the ground? No. It must be Elalav Tashlumin. That's the Mazraya. Since it says that the Shavuos is called the time that you cut, it means that the days after Shavuos are also called Shavuos. The name Shavuos applies to the whole Chag, and for 6 more days it's called Chag Shavuos. Go ahead, it's a regular weekday. You're allowed to reap over there, but it's still called Shavuos. As far as Tashlumin. So this was the second source that we have, that Shavuos is not only the Kabbalah on the day itself, also another 6 days.
Sounds weak because
it's on a drash level, of course, not a pshat level.
As a yom chol, but not.
Yes, that's all the one wants. The one is saying that ksira is a way of defining that it's a weekday, that it's a day of work. On one hand, it's called Shavuos. On the other hand, it's called the day. What is that? It must be that it's telling you that it's the days after Shavuos.
Right.
So it means that you're allowed to bring it's still called Shavuos, so you're allowed to bring the Kabbanis. It's a drash, it's not a pashup shot. And now the Gemara is just going to go back. How can we have to have both drushes? We had 2 drushes today. There might have been something in between, but the Gemara doesn't look at that. So the first drush was Rabbi Elazar ben Oshia, I'm sorry, Rabbi Elazar Omer Rabbi Hoshaya, and second one is Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. The first one, we started the Gemara today. The first thing in the Gemara was this halacha that you're allowed to bring korbanos for all 7 days, and he brought the pasuk b'chag hamatzos of b'chag hashavuos of b'chag hasukkos. And now the Gemara brought a second drasha about v'krosim. Why do you need both drashas? The Gemara wants to make everybody agree with each other that you need both of them. And the Gemara explains you need both of them. You need both of them. The first drush we had about Chag HaMatzos, Chag HaShavuos, have I made a matashlumin shel Chag HaMatzos asir b'asiyas malacha after shlumin yaseh sami asir b'asiyas malacha. You might think that's real serious. That just like Pesach is 7 days, Shavuos also is 7 days, and you can bring the korbanos, but also you're not allowed to do malacha. Maybe it's just as serious as Pesach. Pesach is asir b'malacha all 7 days. So you might think that Shavuos, now that we're adding on Shavuos also as a 7-day Chag, you might think you're not allowed to do malacha. So we have to tell you this one that you are allowed to cut. You're allowed to be reaping during those times. That's why Kamashma Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov that you are allowed to reap, you are allowed to do malacha during those days. So why is the second drasha not enough? The Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov on the next page, Lo havi yadana kama. I wouldn't know how long. It just says even though you're cutting, it's already after the yantif, and you're allowed to reap already. It's still called the yantif, but it doesn't say how long. It just says that it's a weekday, maybe 1 day, 2 days, 3. I don't know. Now it says Kamashma Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. That is a whole 7 days because it's similar to Pesach.
Well, you wouldn't know what.
You wouldn't know how long. How long is it permissible? How many days is it permissible? How long is this tashlum? And it says that it's krasam or kitzartem, that even though it's a yantif, even though it's still called Shavuos, but it's already a day that you're allowed to do malacha. Okay.
Yeah, nobody does more than 7.
Yeah, but how do you know 7? Maybe 1, 2. How do you know 7? Maybe 10. No, we don't know anything. It just says krasam or kitzartem. So now you have the drash that says that it's similar to Pesach for 7 days. So that's the end of the daf, and it's relatively easy. And we only have one halacha that came up besides the Mishnah. The Mishnah, of course, has a machlokis about smicha, which we knew yesterday already. Pas like still you do smicha on yantif, and all those other nesiim and abbez and all like that. And as far as bringing an ola, Beishami says don't bring an ola on yantif, even ola shriya. You don't bring ola shriya. Beisil says you do. That's how we paskin. According to Beishamai, you can't bring it on yantif. You can't bring it on Shabbos. Sometimes you're going to be pushing it off 2 days until Sunday. Beisil also agrees sometimes you can bring it on yantif. If it comes out on Shabbos, then all the kavanas you bring on the next day, and it's also called Yom Tov. But make sure that people don't get confused and think that it's a yantif, like the Stukim say that it's pushed off a day, and they're going to make a Sunday out of it. So so therefore the Kohen Gadol doesn't wear his clothing. Rashi says he doesn't wear his yantif clothing. Or Taisa says he doesn't do avoda in order to make the downplay, and also it's mutter best b'tainus. This might be some source about if Isru Chag is also best b'tainus. Now it sounds a little bit like usually it is. I'm not sure, but they talk about if Isru Chag is also best b'tainus, and that's the end of the Mishnah. The Gemara was 1 point. So far we had today about bringing the korbanos of Shavuos tashlumin 6 days more, altogether 7 days. The reason why the Gemara brought in is because the Gemara said our Mishnah says that the Yom Tov is not Yom Tov, but the Gemara says it doesn't mean that. It just means you don't need a Yom Tov. And the Gemara has 2 drushes for that. How do you know that Shavuos has the Tashlum? One is Chag HaMatzos, Chag HaShavuos, and just like Pesach is 7 days, so too korbanos of Shavuos is going to be 7 days. The second drush at the end of the Gemara brought because it says Ukrasem Ukitzartem, and it's Yantif, but it's enough. It's called Yantif, but it's still a day of work. So that's going to be that you're allowed to bring Tashlumin. And the Gemara says you need both of these drushes. At the end of the Gemara says you need both of them to tell you that it's not Asa b'Malacha. These Tashlumin days are not Asa b'Malacha, but you have to know that it's a week. You need other person to say that it's 7 days. In between, what do we have in between? That there is a din of sometimes Sukkot is not considered the same Yantif as Shmini Atzeres, as far as Pazar Kashav, 6 things that it's not the same, as far as Tashlumin it is. And also that there's a din of Lino, you're supposed to stay after the Yantif overnight. Some say the first night, some say all 7 nights. You're supposed to stay after Yantif, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot.
This is to equate the 3 Chagim as equal.
Yeah, it says
one help us to say that there's 6 days for sure, so it doesn't really help us for that.
Right. So I think maybe the more in other places talks about how do you know the mitzvah of Lina by all 3 Chagim, but I think that it does apply to all three Chagim. And anything else we learned that was more or less the essence of what we learned tonight.
Very nice.
Okay. Yashikar, everybody. Thank you. And Bez Hashem should be a good week for everybody.
Tomorrow, 11 o'clock.
Thank you. Yashikar.
I forgot